Today I'm going to be going through a quick tutorial on how to do lightning and smoke. It can add an interesting effect to a lot of the artwork that you do. I used it particularly for a Star Wars themed artwork. So I took a picture of myself with a lightsaber and I added lightning and smoke and made this very dramatic scene of me fighting a very ugly chihuahua. So we're going to go to Photoshop. We're going to click File and New, or you can just click New here. We're going to use the same regular size sheet parameters that we have. If you want to use a different size, that's up to you. So I'm going to use this custom that I've already got set up. The width or the height is 11 inches or 8.5. So you can switch this back and forth to portrait or landscape. For this particular work, I'm going to do it in landscape. I'm going to make sure it's inches because that's the unit of measurement we use in the United States. Resolution's at 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to keep it at RGB color at a 16-bit, and I'm going to leave the background white. Then I'm going to click Create. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, Save As. I'm going to make sure that I start my new file. So this is the lightning and smoke assignment. So I put 2021 lightning and smoke. Then I'm going to click on that. I'm going to save my lightning and smoke. Just so you know, when you are writing the date, you need to use dashes, not slashes. Otherwise, it won't save. I'm going to title my project Lightning and Smoke dash Kilps dash days 3/18/2021, and then I'm going to save that. That way I've got my project saved from the beginning, and then if anything would happen, it will save some of the file. And remember, anytime that you're opening up the file again, save it to the date that you're working on it. So you should already have a folder started that you can save all your files that you're going to need for this project. So you can see I've got some pictures, and I've done this project a few times already for examples. So I'm going to take this picture that I took of myself. I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag that into my desktop. I'm going to position it where I want. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to grab the corner, and then I'm going to drag that out. Remember, holding Shift keeps it from warping. So I'm going to place myself right here. When I've got it where I want, I'm going to hit Enter. Next, I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the pen tool, or you can use some other type of selecting tool to draw a line around so I can select and cut out this image. Completely selected, I'm going to right click in the middle of my selection and actually make it a selection. I'm going to leave the pixels at 0 because I don't need it to look fuzzy or feathered. Now I have myself completely selected. So I can hold down Control and hit J to copy selected to new layer. Next, I'm going to drag in this picture of Sam the dog, which is apparently the ugliest dog on the internet. I'm going to do the same thing where I drag it in and hold down Shift to get the size that I want, and then I'm going to hit Enter when I place it. Then I'm going to repeat the process of using the pen tool to cut out Sam the dog. Now that I have these two cut out, I'm going to go in and I'm going to drag in this picture I found of a boiler room that looks like a reactor bay. So I'm going to do the same thing, get it to the right size, hit Enter to place it. So I'm going to go over here and make sure that my layers are in the right order. Right now, the reactor bay is on top, so I'm going to drag that down so it's behind Sam the dog and myself. And I'm also going to go in and I'm going to change the names of each layers so I remember. So this is me. This is ugly dog. Now that I've got the three pictures that I'm going to work with, I can start the process of building up my lightning and my smoke. Both of these are going to use the rendered clouds that you can use from Photoshop. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start a new layer. So I'm going to make sure that layer is on top. Then I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go down to render. Then I'm going to click on clouds. So this fills up that whole layer with these clouds. Photoshop offers different types of clouds. So once you start the clouds, you can select different clouds. So I'm going to go to filter again. I'm going to go down to render, and then there's different clouds. If you don't start the initial clouds, you can't change the clouds later. So I'm going to click different clouds, and you can see it kind of isolates this and makes it kind of look almost lightning-y, but the lightning is black. So we need to inverse that. So I'm going to hit Control-I to inverse. Now you can see that all the black areas are white and all the white areas are black. Right now the lightning is very fuzzy, or what we call noisy. So we need to isolate that lightning a little bit better. So we can go down to this circle with a diagonal that's halfway filled in. This is the create new fill or adjustment layer. So we're going to click on that. We're going to go up to levels, and we're going to click that. Now we have this little pop-up box, and it gives you 3 different adjustment levels. It gives you a dark, a medium, and a light. Left click and drag the darker area. The mid area is going to stay in the middle of this. So you can see the adjustment happening with our cloud. And if I take the light, it'll do the same way. But you can see it's getting way too bright and the dark is too dark. So we're going to take the mid and we're going to slide it to the right to isolate this lightning. So now you can see we actually have what looks like lightning or electricity. So once I've got it to the settings that I like, I'm going to click the X. Then I'm going to turn off both the levels layer and my lightning layer. The reason why I want to turn off those 2 layers is I want to be able to see where the lightning is going to go. So I'm going to reposition the image of myself. So I'm going to click on that layer. I'm going to hit Control-T for transform. I'm going to angle myself up a little bit. Then I'm going to move myself down. Maybe angle a little bit more. Then I'm going to hit enter to place. So I want the lightning to look like it's shooting out of my hands at the ugly dog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a selection tool. I'm going to take the lasso tool. And I'm going to start drawing from the ends of my fingers. And I'm going to make it kind of jaggedy so it looks more like lightning. And I'm going to go around this ugly dog's face. And then I'm going to make it jaggedy all the way back to the bottom of my hand. So now I have this selection area. Now I'm going to go back and turn on my lightning layer and my levels layer. I'm going to make sure that my lightning layer is selected. You can see that the selection is still there. So I want to keep this selection, but I want to get rid of everything else. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I to inverse the whole selection. So this area is not selected and everything around it is. Then I'm just going to click delete to get rid of that. You may notice that the levels filter is still affecting the area around that. So we want to do a clipping mask, which will get it behind all these layers, and it will only affect the layer that it's on top of. So I'm going to right click where it says levels, and then I'm going to create clipping mask. You can see that the filter no longer affects this layer, but only the layer that it's right on top of. And you can see that indicated by this little arrow. I'm going to hit Control deselect so I don't have anything selected anymore. And right now the lightning doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to go in and augment that so we can see the things behind it. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that my layers level is selected. Then I'm going to click where it says normal. It's going to affect how the layer is seen. So right now it says normal. I'm going to click on that, and here's all the options. But if you left click on that again, you can use the up and down arrows on your keyboard to cycle through the different options. So I'm going to go through and check out which ones work best. So the lighten looks pretty good, but I'm going to keep checking the other options just to make sure that this is my best option. The screen's not bad either. So those are all of my options. So I think the lighten worked best. So I'm going to left click and I'm going to go back up to lighten and I'm going to click that. So now I have my lightning, but it looks very light and it's very difficult to see with how light the background is. So I'm going to darken up my background. I'm going to use the same levels adjustment that I used on my lightning on my background layer. So I'm going to click on my reactor bay layer. I'm going to click on the create new or add adjustment layer. I'm going to go up to the levels, and then I'm going to turn down the brightness of my background layer. So now I can see my lightning much better. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to go back up to my lightning layer. I'm going to double click that and name it lightning. As you can see, the lightning has some very hard edges. I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. I'm going to make sure I'm selecting the lightning layer. I'm going to add a vector mask or a layer mask to it. Since this is white, I need to make sure that I'm working with black. And then I'm going to make sure that my opacity is kind of turned down to about 30 because I don't want it to erase completely. I just want to get rid of these hard edges. I'm going to go over to the brushes and turn up the size a bit. I'm going to go over and I'm going to fade out these edges a bit. Now I don't have these hard edges. The last step for the lightning is you can change the colors of your lightning. So if you go over to our fill and adjustment button, left click on that. This time we're going to go to hue and saturation. So now we've got all these different adjustments for color. There's a box here that says colorize. If you do not have this checked, it won't affect anything. So left click, so that's checked. It'll put the levels where it essentially is. Now we can go in and change the color, the saturation, and the lightness. So I can keep it at a reddish, I can make it yellow, I can make it green, I can make it blue, I can make it purple, and I can make it back to red. I want this to be blue. So I'm going to put it about there, and then I want this to be really blue. So I'm going to turn up the saturation. And then I'm going to take the lightness and I want that white to really show through to show its electricity. Once you have your settings the way that you want them, you can X out. Now I have some very dramatic lightning. Next, I'm going to add smoke to the picture. So I'm going to go to the top layer and then I'm going to make a new layer. Again, I'm going to go up to filter. I'm going to click render. And then I'm going to click on the clouds again. Right now it's covering up my whole area and I can't see anything behind that. So we need to go over to the opacity and we're going to turn that down so we can see what's happening behind the clouds. So I've got this turned down to about 35 and now we can see the things happening behind it. So now I'm going to go over to my eraser tool. I'm going to click on that. My eraser is about the right size, and then I've got my opacity again turned down so that I'm not erasing the whole thing. So I'm going to start brushing over that, and I'm going to be clicking randomly. If you don't do this, you can actually see the circles that happen when you erase. So you want to click and move to make sure that you are not getting these circles. Like I've got this smoke rolling in from the reactors or from whatever, maybe it's a fire, and I've got this very dramatic scene with lightning and smoke. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Do more, do better.